Okay, welcome back to my channel. It's been literally like 84 years since I last did a video, but I've been like super busy and I don't use that lightly. Um, because I said it in a previous video, because I do have a full-time job. Um, my business is done on the side, but it's been growing super, super fast. So between, taking care of my job, like that's my bread and butter, and then handling retail and mostly wholesale orders for my business, I have not had time to make videos like I would have liked to. Um, in January alone, January 2021, I got 8 new wholesale vendors, or basically, I got 8 new stores to carry my product. And that's just stores. I don't know. I have to look again to see if they have like multiple locations. But so 8 new stores. So that's fulfilling those orders plus the regular retail orders that come in, which has slowed down because it's January. It was January, and then the regular, like the reorders from my existing stores. So I have really been so busy. I felt so bad because I'm like, don't let February get here and you have another video. And like the last video I did was like in like at the very, very end of December. It was like December 30th or 31st or something. So I wanted to make sure that I did another video, just to help some small businesses out. I just kind of want to go over some basics for small business. Now, I have had several people ask me about wholesale. Wholesale is an entire beast on its own, but before you can really get into wholesale, there's a lot of other stuff that you really have to understand, and like to understand from a conceptual point, and not just repeat like a definition. So there's a lot of stuff like concepts that you have to understand. There's a lot of words you have to understand that when I was going through like, my first my first trade show, like, these buyers, they would say certain things, and I just have to play it off, and then like later on look it up to see like, wait a minute, what are they talking about? Or just use context clues to see what they were saying so that I wouldn't look like an idiot. But just to kind of get right in, and I think I tried to do these, in alphabetical order, but I'm probably going to get out of order. So, talking about small business vocabulary, things that you need to know as a small business owner before you start wholesale. And it's not just vocabulary, but concepts and things that you really do need to understand, because if you don't understand some of these things yourself, there's no way you're going to survive in the wholesale world or dealing with stores, because they're not going to want to try to baby you. They're not going to want to hold your hand and walk you through it. They're going to expect you to know certain things and to have certain processes in place. And when they ask you something, you have to be ready to give them an answer, in a timely fashion, without making them feel like you're wasting their time or looking like you just don't know what you're doing. Because as soon as you break confidence with a store, they're not going to want to do business with you. So, first thing, at cost. Basically, that's selling a product for the dollar amount that it actually costs you to produce it. At cost literally means that you do not make a profit, but you also do not lose any money. At cost is usually utilized maybe if you're doing a subscription box, or if you are selling something to like a nonprofit. A lot of people think that if you're a small business and a nonprofit comes to you, you just have to give them stuff for free. It's not the case. Sometimes you can sell it to them at cost where you're not making any money, but they're still paying you for this product because you're a small business. You can't necessarily afford to just give out stuff for free. So whether you bought something wholesale yourself and maybe you're adding something to it, you put in all of the costs that it cost you to make this thing, and then that's the at cost price. So you don't up price it, you don't add any money to it, any fees. It's literally the dollar amount that it costs you to make it and nothing more. Buy-in. I remember this is one of the words that I actually had to use context clues on, and it obviously was pretty simple to get it, but it's basically the first order minimum amount. At my first trade show, that was actually the phrase that a lot of stores were asking, like, what's the buy-in? And basically, how much does it cost for us to get your stuff in our store? Like, what's the opening fee? And then also you have to consider, what is the reorder minimum amount? Usually it's zero. Like for mine, like there is no minimum amount to reorder because you've already bought in. So if you just need to replace one product, then of course you have to buy the pack of 6 because my wholesale stuff comes in packs of 6. But for like your average wholesale order for a retail store, a subscription box, an online store, you want to have case packs. You don't want stores to just buy individual units of something. That's ridiculous. They need to buy at least 4 of these, at least 6 of these, 12 of these, depending on the unit price or the size of it or whatever. So that's something to think about with when you set your buy-in or your opening order minimum amount. Cost of goods sold. There are so many people that have small businesses that have no idea what this means. They've never heard of cost of goods sold. They just are like, I don't know what that is. I've never heard of it. This is how you know how to set your price. Cost of goods sold is the amount that it costs you to make a product, including time, labor, and materials. You really have to just figure out how much did it actually cost me to make this so that you can set your product price properly. So like sometimes so many people, their prices aren't high enough because it's like, well, you're not even buying your raw ingredients wholesale. You're buying them from like Walmart and you're buying them in lower quantities. So it's costing you more at the unit level. So to figure out your cost of goods sold, you have to start with listing all of the ingredients or all of the units that go into making that finished product. So if you make cake, you would list out your flour, your eggs, your sugar, your baking soda, your milk, butter, what else? Baking powder, water, whatever. You list out all of your ingredients and you need to know, okay, well, if I use a cup of milk in every cake batch, well, you need to know how much a cup of milk is costing you. So if you're buying a gallon of milk, so if that gallon of milk is $2, how many cups are in that gallon of milk? I don't know. I want to say it's probably like 32. Or no, I don't think it's 32. I think that's way too many. I think it's like 16 or something like that. Whatever it is. So basically, let's say if it is 16. So you take the cost of that gallon of milk, you divide it by 16 because we're saying that there's 16 cups in a gallon of milk, and that's how much 1 cup is per gallon. Okay, so I just looked it up. It is 16 cups in a US gallon of milk. So let's say, let me do the math here. So a $2 gallon of milk yields 16 cups. 1 cup goes into a batch, a cake batter batch. So 1 cup of milk, when broken down out of that $2 full gallon, cost you 13 cents. So in that cake batch or in that cake batter, the 1 cup of milk costs you 13 cents. And then you do that same thing for the flour, for the sugar. And then that's how you figure out the unit prices. And so you add all of that up for every ingredient. So the cost of goods sold, you have to know what you are spending on your raw ingredients so that you know, if I'm selling something for $20 and it literally cost me $16 to make it, you're only making $4 off of it. So you need to go back and see why you're overspending on some raw ingredients somewhere, or you're underpricing your product. If the price of your product is within that going market rate, If whatever the item is selling, that's the average price, then you're overpaying on those raw ingredients, and you need to go back and see where you are overspending. All right, so your domain name, that's basically your web address. Whether you have purchased one, like mine is www.nhcobotanical.com, that is my domain name because that's the name that's going to take them to my domain. So if you maybe haven't purchased one and you're using Shopify and you're using that super long one, which I do not recommend, that is your domain name. Okay, lead time. So lead time is the amount of time that it's going to take you to prepare an order for shipment. Lead time does not include shipment time. I don't care if you are selling to only the end consumer or if you are selling to stores. I sell to both. I have different lead times for each one because a retail customer or an end consumer, they're not going to have big $200 orders, $1,000 orders. They're not going to do that. So it's only going to take me a couple days, depending on how busy I am fulfilling other orders. So those lead times could be 3 to 5 business days. That's something that you need to lay out right away because people don't want to be guessing on when they can expect their order. And it should be something reasonable. I feel like if it's something that's not totally made from scratch, like a piece of clothing, then I feel like 3 to 5 business days, which is essentially a week, does not include Saturday and Sunday, is pretty fair. For my wholesale customers, the lead time is longer because they tend to have much bigger orders. I let the wholesale stores know up front the lead time, the amount of time that it is going to for me to pick and pack your order, to pick your products, box them, and then put them inside of the box, which oftentimes is literally like playing Tetris. It's going to take me 5 to 7 business days on average. Higher peak times or during holidays, it's going to take longer. Obviously, they understand that because they themselves are retailers. So they understand it, but you also still need to have that in writing just in case there's a new retailer and they just want to know what your shipping policies are. Should I expect 1 week or should I expect 2 weeks? If you say that your lead time is one thing, it's 5 to 7 or 3 to 5 business days, it shouldn't be like 2 weeks and they still haven't gotten their stuff. Or if it is, then you should have given them an update explaining like, this is why this is behind. We got like an unusual amount of orders, or because of COVID, our suppliers are backed up, or whatever the reason is. So that's what lead time is. Logistics. Logistics is me getting my product from my studio to the FedEx store or the UPS store or the post office. That is logistics, how it gets from point A to point B. How do you do that? Are you only going to ship certain days of the week? I've actually seen that where some stores, they're like, we only ship things. We only ship orders on Tuesdays and Thursdays or whatever. And that could be something good for them because they maybe are so busy that helps them to organize things. I actually ship any day of the week. That's possible because that's just, I try to get these orders out as soon as I can. But logistics is figuring out how you're going to get this order shipped. How's it going to get to your customer? Are you going to deliver it yourself? Are you going to use a courier like UPS, FedEx, the post office? You got to figure out your logistics. Alrighty, so for those people that really want to do wholesale, one thing that is always requested is a line sheet. And so at first I didn't know what a line sheet was, but when somebody asked me for one, I certainly Googled it and I got me a line sheet together and I literally sent it to them the next day. And a line sheet is just, it's literally what it says, line sheet. You have your product and you have the information that they need. It's just straight to the point. A picture of the product, you have the product name, the product weight, the retail price, maybe the wholesale price. You can include, for wholesale, how many of this item comes in a case pack. Like, so in order to buy this item, you have to buy a case of at least 6. You can put, any other super important information. You can put your ingredients on there, but it's short and to the point. You don't need a bunch of extra pictures on there. Like on the line sheet, of course, you can Google this, which I highly recommend Googling. That's why it's there. But of course, on the line sheet, you want to have your contact information, like at the bottom or the top. Maybe at the bottom or the top, have your order minimum, have your lead time, so that the retailer has this piece of paper, whether it's a PDF or a physical paper, for them to reference so that they can order your stuff, because basically it's something for them to quickly glance at. I used to not have line sheets printed out, but at the last trade show I did in Los Angeles, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna print out some line sheets. And I did. And I literally got rid of all of them, because it's just something like, as they're walking around, they're just looking at it. I can see the picture of the product, and all the pertinent information that they need. If they want other stuff, they can go to your website, or you can have like a little catalog or something that has, lifestyle pictures in it. But that's what a line sheet is. It's a sheet of paper or a PDF that has the product and the pertinent information that retailer is going to need to basically make a good decision on whether that's something that they're interested in. Outsourcing. Outsourcing is basically paying another person or company to complete some particular work for your business. I've actually done this before. I've actually outsourced like blog writing. That's the only thing I've literally outsourced. Like, I've done it before. I've done one thing. But some people, they outsource like manufacturing, which is totally okay. Like, if that's the industry that you're in, like, it's totally okay to outsource manufacturing, because I think it can be absurd if you think that you can do everything for your business. You can wear every single hat that your business needs. That's actually a bit, like I said, it's ridiculous to think that you can do that. So, like, if you have maybe clothing, well, maybe you can outsource that piece of clothing, or whatever that, maybe a piece that goes on to the finished piece. You can outsource that to someone else to make, and then you can put it on. Or social media, you can outsource someone to handle your social media accounts. It's totally common. People do that. I'm not going to pay for it at this point, because I just don't think that's it's worth it, especially with these algorithms changing. I just feel like it's not worth it. Accounting, that's something that probably needs to be outsourced once you get to a certain level. I don't outsource my accounting because I'm just not there yet. Even though I'm starting to deal with bigger numbers on a regular basis now, I'm just not at the point where I'm like, you know what, I just need somebody else to deal with this. I can still deal with it. So outsourcing is basically getting somebody else to do something on behalf of your business. I would recommend outsourcing if you're not good at something. Like, if you're not good at graphics, outsource it to someone else. Outsource it to you can even get an app which is essentially outsourcing, where the app does the design work for you, and you just have to like pop a picture in or something. That's still outsourcing. And it's okay. It doesn't make you any less of a business owner. Like, it doesn't make you, fake or anything. It's just being wise, because if you're not good at something, there's no point in you doing it. Outsource it to someone else so that it looks good, or that it's done properly. Overhead. Overhead is basically those things those costs that your business incurs, whether you have a sale or not. Like your insurance, I hope you have it. Like insurance, that's an overhead. That's an overhead cost. If you have a warehouse, or if you have a storage unit, those are overhead costs. Having to pay for your website domain, once a year, you have to renew it. That's an overhead cost. Like, those are costs of doing business that you would be incurred regardless of whether you made a sale or not. Those, you want to always make sure that you have money for those, of course, and that those overhead costs are included in the cost of your product. So I'm just going to have to make like a totally different video on, how to price your products, because people seem to not really know how to do that, and maybe they're unsure. But I've talked to like a lot of people across the board where like they have something and it's like priced like, whoa, that's super high. I would love to support it, but it's just too expensive, and I'm not gonna buy that. And so make sure your overhead costs are included in your product prices. Profit margin. Profit margin is basically that percentage of that percentage yield of like the price that you sell something versus the cost for you to make it. So it's like the cost of goods sold as a percentage of the price that you actually sold it at. That can get really complicated, so I'll talk about that in another video, but that's what profit margin is. They vary from industry to industry, and they also vary from the size of a business. So like let's say if you sell clothing, Fashion Nova or somebody, or Forever 21, or these other like fast fashion companies, their profit margin is probably a very small percentage, but because they make so much money, that percentage yields millions and millions and millions of dollars. Versus like a small company who maybe make clothing, you probably have a bigger profit margin, but the dollar amount of that profit margin is smaller. Target market. Target market is who are you trying to sell your stuff to, and to think that your product is targeted to men and women ages 18 to 65, like that's ridiculous. Like, you have to narrow down your specific market of who your ideal customer is. And I think I actually talked about this in one of my videos, where when I worked at JCPenney, they had like a little pamphlet, and they had all these little brands, the JCPenney brands, and they had like a little story about each like ideal customer for that particular brand. And so if you sell like pacifiers, like some kind of custom pacifier or something, obviously your target market would not be babies. It would be a parent who has a baby. If you have like let's say if it was like some kind of designer or like really fancy pacifier, well, you would also then say that, well, maybe my ideal customer is a parent who has a child, and maybe their income is a certain level. Obviously, somebody who has a lower income may not be interested in buying some type of luxury pacifier when they can get a pack of 3 for just a couple dollars. So you have to think about like who my target market is based on their demographic, based on what their income is, what is their education level. Those literally all come into play as far as your target market. That's something that you really can't scam on, because when you try to sell to the wrong market, you're not going to make sales, or you're going to be wondering like, oh, well, these people don't support me. Well, that's because they're not your target market and they don't care. But once you really tap in, or you find out who your target market is, and then you actually start to target them, then you'll start to see sales. Of course, it just doesn't come magically. Like, you still have to brand your stuff properly. You have to price it properly. Because if you have something that's like, oh, well, my target market is wealthy people who have like, $200,000 salary. Well, you can just throw crap out there and think that because that's your target market, that they're just going to buy it. Like, your stuff still has to appeal to them, but you're just gearing it in the right place. Just like think about like, I think they talked about like certain convenience stores. Well, they put them in the hood, because that's who the market is. They're not going to put that in a nicer area, because that nicer area, they don't want that. Like, that, they're not going to buy it. They don't care. So it's that same concept. It's not, talking down to people. It's just a fact of life. These people are not interested in this product. These people are. And so that's something you want to keep in mind when you're trying to sell your product, so that you can actually succeed. The last one is web host. Web host is basically the system that is carrying your website. So a web host could be Shopify, it could be Big Cartel, it could be Wix, like even GoDaddy, where you can design your website on there. That's your web host, because you have a domain, but it's just sitting there until you put it on a web host. So it's basically who is carrying your website. So there was 13 small business vocabulary words and concepts that you should understand as a small business owner. And just to recap, we got at cost, we have buy-in, cost of goods sold, domain name, lead time. I forgot one. Lead time, logistics, line sheet, outsourcing, overhead, profit margin, target market, and web host. And I just saw that I did forget one, liability. That's my favorite one because I have a background in insurance. Liability is basically to be or to be held responsible for something. That's why every small business needs liability insurance. Even if you actually are not responsible for it, somebody could claim that you're responsible for it, and you still need to be able to defend yourself. And most people cannot do that. That's why they pay for insurance. I'll let my insurance carrier deal with it. Like I saw a video where a lady went to, like, it was like a boutique, a small boutique, and she was kind of like not all there. She didn't have her life together, but she went into the store, and the boutique, they did have like a little water spill. That's a liability because you will be responsible for somebody slipping on that water puddle because you didn't clean it up, and also because you didn't have like cones around it. So it's your job to protect the customers. And so, well, the lady did slip on it, and she thought that this is my golden ticket. I am fixing to get paid. That's not how it works. But because they had insurance, they reported the claim to their insurance carrier, and of course they're going to look into it. You don't just get paid. Like, I'm trying not to go on a rant here because people think that just because something happens that they get $1 million or they get this huge settlement that they see on TV. That's not how it happens. That's like gross negligence. Something like this, like something simple liability, well, we'll cover your medical bill, but they'll cover your medical bill, but you're not going to just get money because you want to go shopping. And so that's what the lady thought. She thought that she was just going to get some money. You had a puddle, I slipped on it, which is true. That's the liability portion because the boutique was liable. She thought that equaled give me money. Now I'm about to get paid and I'm going to go shopping. But they reported it to their insurance carrier, and they're like, well, we've tried to reach out to this lady. She hasn't sent us anything. She hasn't returned our calls. There's nothing we can do at this point because she also has a responsibility to cooperate with the insurance company as a claimant. And that's not what happened. So when the lady came back to the store, she's like threatening the boutique owner. And she's like, hey, I reported this to my insurance carrier and they're going to handle it. And she was like, wait a minute, what? You mean I'm just not going to get some money? And she's like, no. And then she was like, well, you be talking to my lawyer, which when people say that, they're probably not going to get a lawyer. And then she just stormed off and never came back. And it had been like, I guess a couple years or something when that happened. But liability, it's when you are thought to be or you are responsible for something. So in this case, that boutique store, they were responsible for that lady slipping on the floor. But at the same time, the lady slipping on the floor also had a responsibility to cooperate with the insurance carrier. So you don't want to get caught, slipping essentially without insurance. Whether you have, even if you don't have a physical store, if I'm just haphazard and I am not making my products properly, I'm not keeping batch numbers. I'll talk about that later. I am risking liability. I'm risking somebody having the opportunity to say something about my product. So I always make sure that things are done properly, that I follow my recipes as closely as possible. So that's another thing, just to add to that list of small business vocabulary. So that's 14 once I added the liability. Small businesses always need liability insurance. Like if you don't have liability insurance for and you are selling a physical good, you don't need to be selling. It's really irresponsible as a small business owner to sell something and you don't have insurance to cover it, because if your product hurts someone and then that person then truly ends up injured or whatever, and you don't have the money out of pocket to cover it, your insurance basically would cover that. That's what they're for. And so when you don't do that, that's a disservice to every customer that you are serving. So make sure that you do have small business insurance, general liability insurance, product liability insurance is all wrapped up in one. I do have another video about small business insurance, and you can just Google it, small business insurance. I know some off the top of my head, a few of them: Three Insurance, Hiscox, Huckleberry. Um, there's another like there's a few. There's so many. All you have to do is Google it. It's a business expense. It'll cost you a couple $100s, but guess what? That's a peace of mind. If you wouldn't drive without car insurance, you shouldn't do business without liability insurance. So I hope this video has been useful as you continue your small business endeavors. And I'm going to try to get this right. So ring the bell and give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't, and I will try to get another video out as soon as I possibly can. So thanks so much for watching, and see you next video.